Welcome to Melanated and Spiritually Woke. I'm your host, Adorable Earth Angel. I'm a holistic wellness educator of 12 years with a master's in public health, energy healing of 7 years, and have been a Black female spiritual alchemist my whole life. Each week, we'll be sharing uplifting, spiritually focused wellness practices to best support you in regaining your personal power, or we'll have special guest interviews with the same intention. This show is in service to all those listening, and especially for folks of color who are seeking information to support their physical, mental, and emotional spiritual awakening. These practices will help you live your best life. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to our show, Melanated and Spiritually Woke. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening in. Because in these times, being in spaces and listening to content that is uplifting can be hard to come by when there's so much happening around us, when there's so much shadow. And a lot of people have been speaking to some just real challenging energy. And so before I jump into it, I just want to say again, I'm adorable. And a huge part of why I do what I do with this show is because of the challenging aspects of what it means to be a person, a melanated person navigating life in America. And the shadowy aspect of what we're seeing is an archetype that we can actually look to the stars to understand better. So on today's show, we're actually going to be talking about some astrological placements and how they relate to systemic oppression that we're witnessing in this country. We're going to be talking about you specifically and maybe the challenges you might have been experiencing recently and the shifts that the universe is asking you to make. So, something to note, a really big deal. We had Cancer and Capricorn activate in this very specific dance that they're doing right now, and it's called an eclipse. And many of you probably tuned in a couple of years ago when we had that big eclipse go across America. And it activated within a lot of Americans a lot of changes and a lot of shifts and a lot of evolution. And so what we're sitting with is that we have the same thing happening in this eclipse season. We had the first eclipse happen in Cancer at the beginning of this month. And within that, there was a lot of energy connected to Cancer archetypes. And the Cancer archetype is that of nourishment. Now, I don't want to get too technical. Even though I'm a student of astrology, I recognize some people out there are not. But what we want to understand about eclipses is that they offer us the ability to have really, really quick transformation in a small amount of time. And so in your life right now, you can probably think about how things are transforming in your life. Maybe there was a trajectory that you were on, a group of people you were connecting with, work that you were doing that is now abruptly ending. And there's this understanding of like, well, what is happening? What is going on? Why haven't I been able to link into the same things that have brought me comfort in the past? And that's the energy that we're talking about today. This energy that is connecting with you as a being that is on your path, doing the best that you can do, being the best that you can be. But feeling that stuck, that stagnation, that feeling of a lot of shadowy energy, that's eclipse season. And right now, specifically in America's birth chart, which is the 4th of July, we just had America's birthday, basically. Just a lot of energetics around America evolving right now and how that relates to us in this country and what that means for us in our evolution. Because as America goes through its purging, its healing, its cleansing, we individually go through the same thing. And in fact, we inform the upliftment and the healing of America as individuals, as spiritual individuals connected to a bigger, greater consciousness. And so in this moment, as we sit with this, like, why have I been going through a lot of things? A lot of people have been reaching out to me and asking me what is going on right now. I feel stuck. I feel held back. I feel like I don't have the momentum. I feel like my dreams are being deferred. I feel like all I see in the world is hate. I feel like all I see in the world is the energy of no. And I want you to recognize that you are not alone. You are not alone. That what you're feeling is a collective purging that we are all on the journey of. We are all on the journey of healing. We're all on the journey of purging. And anytime we think that we are individuals, we are trapping ourselves in this notion that is not true. The not truth is that you are on this journey by yourself, that you are the only one suffering, that you, and within that energy is divisive and it's shadowy, and it's the energy that's being purged. Because we are raising the vibration, we are raising the frequency of the planet. And every time we raise the frequency of the planet, things that are not in alignment within us, within our being, within our prayers, is going to be purged. And so the eclipse energy that we're finding in these seasons, yesterday we had our second eclipse in Capricorn. The Cancer was at the beginning, and then yesterday, on Tuesday the 16th, we had our second eclipse in Capricorn. And I'm going to speak to these archetypes and how they relate to you right now. So, as I mentioned before, Cancer, the eclipse, the lunar eclipse in Cancer that we had was really significant in that right now the North Node is energetically in Cancer. What that means is everything that is around the evolution of home, your emotions, your sense of comfort, your sense of connection to the heart, to the hearth, the things that bring you warm and fuzzies, the energy of family, the energy of your roots, your ancestry that you're proud of, that energy is being enhanced. That is the energy that we are being asked to evolve and enhance in various ways. And of course, in your individual birth charts where Cancer is, in the North Node of Cancer, that's going to play a significant part as to how you actually feel it as an individual. But collectively, what we're finding is that right now, this placement of the North Node in Cancer is invoking in us this feeling of like life feels so much better when I recognize that I can do what I love with my life, that I can have the life that I want to live, that my domestic life, my personal life is important. And that's the truth, right? A lot of people had been feeling the pressures of needing to make income, of the pressures of needing to have a reputation, which is the exact opposite axle point from Cancer, which is Capricorn. Capricorn is the energy of your reputation in the world, your career, your job, your resume, your CV, your achievements. It's the energy that a lot of what we're seeing, like the toxic masculinity, is asking us to buy into. And that frequency is not sustainable. It's not wanted. And a lot of people are waking up this past month and a half, people are waking up to the fact that their values and their ideals aren't even theirs. That buying into this idea of having this reputation, of being famous, of having money, of having status, that this isn't really what you want. And so how do you reconcile what you've been conditioned to believe your entire life versus what is really in your heart? The Cancer energy, I just want to feel good. I want a loving relationship. I want to be able to talk to my children and not yell at them. I want to have a home where we're eating healthy foods and we're having beautiful movie nights. I want a beautiful home. I want to feel like my home is warm versus I feel isolated because I'm working 19-hour days, right? This is the axle point that we are being pushed to shift in our very personal lives. And so what that means is some careers are ending right now. A lot of people are recognizing I have zero steam to do this anymore. I told myself I had to become this thing and I had to do this career because it would bring me stability, it'd bring me status, and it's what everybody should want. It's the American dream. And right now what's happening is the American dream is shifting. And your inner being has an American dream. And I want to recognize, I'm feeling it. So some of my listeners aren't Americans and they're listening internationally. So I just want to address that. Sorry about that. Just to let you know that within that, this energy is including everybody. Everybody out there listening. I want you to feel included in recognizing I'm taking this from an American perspective. Because there's a lot of turmoil happening on our soil, but everywhere, everyone's experiencing the same thing of patriarchy, which is crashing and crumbling down. And we as a collective can survive the crashing of the patriarchy. We can survive toxic masculinity. We can survive racism and sexism and all of the different ways in which these various harmful mindsets, these diseases of the spirit, I would call them. Any ism is just a disease of the spirit. It's condensed energy. It's shadow condensed energy that has never been healed and cleansed and processed. That is happening right now through us. And so a huge part of what I'm telling people, please do not personalize what's happening to you. Take a breath with me on that. And let it out. Please do not personalize what's happening to you. If you feel stuck right now and you feel like there's no way out, recognize that energy in itself of feeling stuck and no way out is the very energy that these times are asking for you to experience and to let go of. That is the healing medicine. That experience of you surviving your ability to release that energy, which is huge. And it's transformational to be in that place where you can allow yourself to open up to the possibility of shifting, of changing, of growing. You have that ability to be with this energy, this sitting on this axle point. And so that is what's been happening for this month. We've been awakening to the idea that we don't necessarily need the things that we think we need. And that our spirit's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm going to demonstrate very clearly in showing you how things aren't working out, that I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have any part of this. And so within this context of the Capricorn shadow, I mentioned we have toxic masculinity. And what is toxic masculinity? It was so funny today because, not yet today, the other day I was at Trader Joe's and there was a guy and he had this shirt, and on his shirt he had it had two boxes on it. And in one box it had a man and a woman together, and it looked like the woman was talking to the man, and it said the word problem over it. And then on the second box, the man had kicked the woman out of the box and it said solution. And I walked up to him and I'm like, okay, what is this shirt about? Because my sister had called me the other day and she said there was this whole movement around men. It's called men leaving women or men walking away or something. And it's this idea, there's this movement of men who are like, I'm going to give up on women and I'm just going to walk away from that culture. And so I was like, are you a part of that movement? And he's like, no, I love women. And I'm like, so let's talk about why you're wearing this shirt then. Because it's the shirt's the opposite of that sentiment. And we had a conversation and he's like, well, what's toxic masculinity? And I'm like, well, toxic masculinity is this understanding that it's a wounded energy. And it's for me, my definition is the inability for men to have been given for them not to have been given the permission to have emotions. And so within them not having their emotions, there's this energy that builds and builds and builds and starts to manifest as abuse and as narcissism and as domination. And really what's at the core wound of that is the inability to have emotion. because humans are meant to have emotions. So toxic masculinity are the symptoms of the inability for men to have been given their ability to just be a human being. And so that's what it is. It's not to like demonize men or make them feel like they're less than. It's that they haven't not been given the permission to be human beings. And we still have to uphold that those behaviors aren't conducive to being in a healthy place in that dynamic with women. And so he's like, well, what about toxic femininity? I'm like, yes, I feel you. But that would be like saying that there's a such thing as reverse racism, and that there's a power dynamic that's happening here, you know? And so he was like, okay, I'm hearing what's happening here. And I felt like I was able to connect with him and talk about that. And for me, that felt like that was like, I felt like I pat myself on the back. I'm like, oh, there's me actually trying in this conversation. If he and I represent this archetype, we've healed something collectively. And I think sometimes we don't think that like a simple conversation at a grocery store can actually heal the collective of the universe. But we are God. So we're the universe. So every single interaction we have in some way is inciting that God force. And so I'm like, I'm willing to stop my life and have this conversation with this person, and it matters to me. And, you know, for some people that might not be big enough, but for me, I was like, I felt like I did something good today. And so that's just encouraging, you know, if you feel like you're in this place of wanting to have these conversations and kind of shift the narrative around the toxic masculinity that we're experiencing, which is coming up because this is how we know patriarchy's dying, though. This is how we know, because if patriarchy wasn't dying, then we wouldn't be having all of these extreme racist, sexist challenges that the past 2 years have been provoking, that have been there the whole time. But so this eclipse in the south node, so I mentioned there's a north node and the south node. So the north node in the Cancer is the thing that we're aspiring towards, the thing that we're wanting to feel, which is the sense of home. Everybody right now just wants to go home. You just want to feel at home. You want to feel like you're in the career that you want to be in the life that you want to be in. And that's that's ultimately what we're all wanting. The south node's like, hey, can't forget me. In order for you to go home, you got to deal with you have to deal with what's out here in the back. You have to deal with all this stuff back here. And so we've been like, okay, wow, that's a lot of stuff back there, you know? And all the stuff again is, are you willing to let your identity go through a transmutation where you're letting go of the conditioning that basically like old white dudes dictated that we should want all this stuff? And it's like, especially as like melanated people, like we have our own understandings of what it means and what we value, you know, what we care about, what brings us real comfort. I know it doesn't, I mean, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people that love you, you don't have anything really. I mean, right? Like if you don't have love, if you don't have someone who nourishes you and cares about you, or a home environment where there's love and there's nourishment, do you really have that much value in your life? Like, do you really have your needs met? The answer is no, of course not, because humans need love. Money is great, and having, you know, roof over our heads and the bills paid, that's important. But at the end of the day, this is asking us to shift our values towards the energetics of love, of divine feminine energy, which is making sure that everyone has their mouth fed, which is making sure that everyone has their needs met. And as we think about the political landscape of what's happening, and we merge together and we dovetail the political and spiritual challenges that are emerging right now, we can see that with the keeping families together movement right now that's happening at the border. Like right now, we have the toxic masculinity building up these walls. They're building up these borders. They're putting children in cages. That is the South Node Capricorn energy that we're seeing visibly in the political landscape right now. If you want like evidence of like what I'm talking about, you can literally witness that. And then we have the divine feminine energy, right? We have our champions of change saying, hey, excuse me, they're all women and mostly women of color. You've probably heard of the squad, right? they're saying, hey, we need to get children out of cages, like now. We need to understand that families belong together. We need to value family. When do we stop valuing families as Americans? Like, when do we stop valuing the fact that that people need to be treated humanely and they need love and nourishment? So right now we are on this really big landscape of witnessing the North Node in Cancer versus the South Node in Capricorn. And these aren't sports teams. These aren't sports teams. The energy of the North Node in Cancer is going to win. Like, the light is always going to triumph over the darkness. And so that's another thing that's coming up, is the shadowy energy. A lot of us have been witnessing this shadowy energy, and we've been focused on the shadow and just witnessing it and being like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. Oh my God, everything's going to be ruined. Trump is ruining everything. Like, there's no hope. Climate change is coming for us. Like once you start going down that pathway, energetically, you are going towards shadow. And when we put our energy towards shadow, it amplifies it. And so that's another thing that's happening. Recognize, what information are you allowing to be a part of your reality right now? And if we are looking at things that are negative, how can you still be an upholder of the light? This is the definition of a light worker. Someone who can be with the shadow and still choose the light at the end of the day. The end of the day, just choosing to be a being of light, being like, okay, I see this shadow right here. I see this part of me that feels like these people are being like facetious. You know, I could see, and you can walk yourself into this place of being the very thing that you're condemning, because that's how the shadow works. We condemn, and then we become that thing in our own little definition, our own little way. And so the North Node is asking us to go towards the divine feminine within our being, to express within ourselves the ability to feel that nourishment, the ability to feel like we're doing what we care about. Right? Like, I'm asking you right now, do you love what you're doing with your life? Do you care about what's going on with your life? Do you care about your job? Is it really, really what you want? Or is it a construct that you think you have to do because you were told you have to do it? Because that's really what's here. This is a great time for jumping into a completely different career that you've never done before. This energy supports that. So it's like, if we were thinking about, if we move into like, well, what are the benefits? How can I use this energy? Okay, let's talk about that. So the best way to use this energy right now, especially if you're in this place of feeling like you're still getting worked, you're like, I'm getting worked. It's like, so the best thing to do is to stop for a second and breathe and recognize, this is bigger than me. Just repeat that after me out loud right now. This is bigger than me. And then just taking that and recognizing, say to yourself, I don't have to take this personal. And just taking that moment to realize, if not taking this personal, and it's bigger than you, and it's energy that's happening to everyone, that in itself helps you to use this energy in an appropriate way. Another thing to note is that the opposite of Capricorn South Node, again, is Cancer, which is the ocean, with the lakes, beaches. This is the best place for you to be. So if you're like, what do? I invite you to go up to the river this week. I invite you to go to a body of water and to cast your prayers in the water. And if you need to add some water to that body of water, if you need to cry some tears, this is the week to do that. This is the week to go and to cast your prayers and to be in nature and to be with the energy of what's new, what's coming in. As we release that old conditioning, toxic masculinity that not just lives in men, but in women, the conditioning that and everyone across all gender spectrums, all non-binary folks as well. Everybody is conditioned by toxic masculinity, regardless of what gender you identify under or not. So it's all in there. We're all conditioned by it. But as we move through that conditioning, that energy stops with us. It stops with you. It stops with you as you release it, as you heal it. Your babies don't have that in their system. They don't have that in their energetics anymore because you healed it. It's like, so they're like, cool. I'm toxic masculinity free. Go ahead and vaccinate your children against toxic masculinity by first purging it out of your system. It's an interesting statement, huh? So another thing to note, like a really good use of this energy too is to recognize that this is also not the time to be doing anything really super, launching anything new. We have Mercury retrograde, and Mercury is the planet of communication, the planet of like contracts. And so it's not really a time for you to be like, I'm going to just launch this new business idea. It's just not happening because you're not going to have. So here's the thing. When it comes to the planets, and on this show, we're going to be talking a lot about astrology. We're going to be talking about how to use the astrological energy. That energy is so much bigger than you. Those planets are huge. And they've been like churning out energy for thousands and millions of years. And like, we're just like fresh on the scene. Nobody here's that old. So who's going to have a bigger influence, the planets or you, right? So you always want to move with the planets. So if you're wanting to launch a business, you're going to want to not do it when like the planet of communication, business, the planet of contracts, you don't want to do it when it's retrograde. I had it so funny. An artist came up to me. I was at the lake. I live in Oakland, and I was at the lake, and I was at this drum circle. And this artist that I've known for years, he came up to me and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna launch my new thing." And I was like, "No, don't do it. That's a bad idea. Do not launch your new album during a Mercury retrograde." I wish musical artists talk to me before they try to do things, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna drop your album. It's gonna be ghost, because that's not where the energy is. Energy always wants to be when Mercury is direct, because if you drop an album or if you drop a new business thing, people are going to sleep on it because that's not where the vibe is. Always put your stuff where the vibe is. So if you've already worked on a business plan or you worked on a project, this is the great time to go over it and review it. So right now, there might be things that you're working on. You're like, oh, I can just review over it and look over it. Perfect. Exactly. This is the time to review. This is the time to rethink. This is the time to go inward. In fact, we have 5 planetary bodies in retrograde right now. We have Saturn, we have Pluto, Mercury, Neptune, Chiron. So a lot of energy is asking us to go inward, not outward. So if you're like, I'm going to go do something, actually, this is the time to refine. This is the time to refine what you're wanting to work on. So many of you out there have an idea of wanting to make this shift that I'm talking about into a new career, or you want to have a new project. You're like, I totally feel you, adorable. I do want to shift and go somewhere. It's like, okay, just hold out a little bit longer. And just because there's pieces that you don't have completely on point. And as you roll out this new energy, you want to make sure that those pieces are there, or it's just not going to be as polished and refined. It's not going to reflect the true energetics of what you're wanting to do. You're going to feel like, I wanted to do this. Why is this so bland? It's like, well, you really want to be in vibe with it, with the correct energies. So it's another thing to do at this time. And as we wrap up today's show, I just want to let you know that a lot of people out there are of the light and are doing what they can do to heal. And I have a feeling that a lot of my listeners are people like that. A lot of my listeners are people that are uplifters, that you're here to be a healer in your own right, that you have the ability to understand what's going on, and sometimes you feel consumed by it and you don't know what to do. And that there's a hope within you that somehow, some way, things will feel better. And I want you to know that energy of wanting things to feel better, you completely have the power of doing that right now. So a huge part of what it means to be an uplifter is to uplift yourself first. And a lot of things that we don't do is self-care. And again, I'm going to reference Cancer, North Node, Eclipse. Cancer is the energy of self-care. I'm surprised I hadn't said that earlier. It literally is the energy of self-care. Cancer is self-care. It's the chicken soup and the nice soft socks. And it's also like exercise, because that's self-care. Take care of your physical body. It's the energy of going for a walk outside. So like a huge part of what I'm invoking in everyone who's listening is, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel stuck, it could be that there's not enough self-care in your life. And this energy is pointing you towards taking care of yourself in a beautiful and loving way. And I want to offer those listening an opportunity to engage with the self-care practice. I've cultivated a self-care practice that's called energy care. And it's an energy healing practice for you. It helps you to clear out the stress and the depression and the toxicity and the anxiety that's in your energetics. And it is a gift that I'm giving to everyone who's listening. It is a free gift. You literally can pull out your phone right now and type in adorableenergy.com and go to my website, and there is a free energy healing gift. It is a 15-minute sequence. Every person who's ever done the sequence always tells me that they feel better. Just doing 15 minutes just changes everything for them. And I would not be in this way, I would not be on this show, in this platform, without wanting to really give people something that's going to work for them. Something that's really going to change their lives and give them tools to help them feel better. Because we need everybody to wake up. We need everyone to be in their divine light. And the only way we're going to do that is if we are taking care of our physical bodies and our mental health and our spiritual wellness. And that means doing the work. And so if you're inspired by what you're hearing today and you are like, I do need a daily practice. I had one and I fell off. Let me work with you. Go to my website, check out this free gift, and look at it and do it and allow yourself to go through the process of being healed in that way. I also want to let you know, if you're in this process and you are feeling confused and you are like sitting with a lot in your relationships, with your work, I would love to support you. The huge part of what we feel a lot is that we're in it alone and we just have to figure it out. And that's not true. I would love to work with you. I look at your birth chart. I pull some tarot. I look at human design and I see what's going on. And I look at you because you are worthy of having someone give you that time and energy. And we figure out what's going to happen next. Practical, accurate work that I do with my clients. And it would be my honor to work with you. It would be my honor to support you in making this next big jump through this eclipse season as you are navigating a new life, a new chapter, and you're wanting to do it with a really strong foundation. I would be honored to support you in that. You can go on my website and you can see right now, actually, I do this once a year. I have a sale because eclipse season is real. So every year I cut my price in half. Right now, all of my sessions, my gold session and my platinum session are 50% off. Meaning that 50% off, you can literally go and book a session right now with me. And we can work together on helping you understand what is the next step for you. What is the next step that's going to bring you closer to your authentic self, where you're having more joy and more truth and authenticity. And so I have 2 sessions. I have a gold session and I have a platinum session. And they're very similar in that we're looking at your birth chart. We're looking at where you're at, where you're about, where you're going to go. We do some clearing. The second session, the platinum session, is more extensive. I'm with you for 2 hours. And we're also clearing energy. A lot of people talk to me. They send me emails like, I feel stuck. And I'm like, a lot of people aren't getting energy healing, clearing. Like, we go to the dentist, we fill in our cavities, we get our hair trimmed, but most people never go to an energy healer and get their energy cleared. So there's a lot of blocks that we have. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for leaning into this conversation. I feel you so strongly. I invite you, no matter what, to choose the light. I invite you to be a light worker in your own right, and recognize that even if you're around people who are being toxic, that they're just trying to find their way back to the light as well. And that we have to be with each other in these times in a nourishing and loving way, because this is what the energy is asking from us, to be authentic with what we're here to really do. Thank you so much for listening in. And until next time, I hope that you really feel the resonance of peace and love and joy in your life and equanimity. I'll see you next week.